All right, man, peace. So many of you brothers out there might be aware of a concept known as the law of attractions, which basically stipulates that whatever you speak about the most or think about the most will tend to be the things that you attract. For example, Tupac Shakur, the renowned rapper, due to the fact that he will constantly speak about affliction and dying early and being harassed by the police and being betrayed, those tended to be a lot of the narratives that he started to find himself involved in, because he would literally, quote unquote, speak it into existence. I'm sure that many of you brothers have come across people in your lives that were excessively negative, always had thoughts that lent towards the morbid or what have you, and they would tend to have those things come upon them in their real life. Many times we speak about certain things or certain energies, we lean ourselves towards a particular polarity so much that we don't even notice things that transpire or occur that don't necessarily jibe with what we're thinking about or speaking about. And that could go for the positive or the negative. You have people who are so positive that when negative things happen to them, it appears to not affect them because they don't pay it as much attention as negative people pay negative things that happen to them. Now, this concept also falls in line with a lot of the racial rhetoric that we see becoming more and more popular today for people to gain relevance or validation over social media. Everyone now seems to be an expert on quote unquote societal issues, social justice, history, racism, etc. So when you start to speak about racism, racialized conditions, or what you expect to happen in particular environments, you cannot marvel when those events, when those situations actually start to transpire right before your very eyes. If a woman constantly is in fear that she's going to be attacked by a man, that she might be sexually assaulted or raped, subconsciously, she might start to venture out into the street at 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, scantily clad, hoping subconsciously that this thing actually occurs. You have certain people who listen to particular brands or genres, subgenres of hip-hop music, and they become so immersed in a certain type of lifestyle, a certain type of culture, a certain type of thought process, that they actually start to embody that thought process. That's why you have kids who are from middle America or from the suburbs who started gang sets in their localities, in their suburb, on their block, because they heard an Ice Cube or an Eazy-E or a Tupac or what have you ramble on about a particular lifestyle or a life choice that even they themselves did not live, but it just sounded so grandiose, so fantastic to people who were nowhere near the proximity of those conditions, that they started to replicate those conditions in their own environment because of the power of the mind. Mr. Kyrie Irving decided well before the Nets ventured out to Boston to participate in those 2 games in that city that he was going to warn the people in Boston to not approach him or his teammates with anything that might be considered quote unquote disrespectful or could be taken as a racialized gesture. Well, of course, because Kyrie made that proclamation, we already should have known that that is exactly what was going to occur, and that's what did occur. He had a water bottle thrown at him as he was leaving the arena. Why is that? Because not only did he put those thoughts into the atmosphere, but on top of that, he decided to antagonize the fan base of the Boston Celtics by stepping on their emblem, on their logo, on their little demonic entity that they believe brings them so much quote unquote good luck, the quote unquote leprechaun. So does that mean that Kyrie Irving brought that situation on himself? Not necessarily, but we do have to grasp and understand that when you antagonize any creature, whether it be an animal or a human being, eventually they're going to try to do something back to you. So of course they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
I want to get to the latest, guys, with Boston and the situation, because Celtics fans, they showered Kyrie Irving with booze and language all game long yesterday. But as the Nets were leaving the court after their win, a fan threw a water bottle that nearly hit Kyrie. That fan was arrested on assault and battery charges, and also...
Now, what I think eventually is going to happen is that we may see another Malice at the Palace situation occur, especially in this time period where everyone is woke, and then you have the counter woke movement. It would not surprise me to see players bum rush the stands yet again and have something cataclysmic, traumatizing occur. and then the NBA respond by maybe putting up a fence separating the fans from the players, something similar to what we now see with Major League Baseball. Because I can just see this starting to build more and more to a crescendo.
Time ban from TD Garden, and when talking about the incident, Kyrie called it, quote, underlying racism and being...
And by the way, that fan has pretty good aim.
Or in a zoo. Shannon, what is your reaction to the latest here?
I'm not surprised. I'm surprised that it probably would have...
Well, here's the thing, Shannon Sharp. You said that you're not surprised, but in the segment that you and Skip taped in response to the statements that Kyrie Irving made, where pretty much he put forth a premonition about what was going to occur at some point in the two games that the Nets were up in Boston, you yourself said, Kyrie, why even bring this up? Because even you understood that there is such a thing as speaking things into existence.
Had Kyrie played as well Friday as he played last night, Skip, they didn't feel it was necessary because he didn't play particularly well, and they won the game. Kyrie was spectacular last night, along with James Harden, along with KD.
Yep.
And so, you know what? And maybe the fans saw what he did to the logo at center court, Skip.
Yep.
Maybe the fans saw that. Maybe that had something to do with it. But, Skip, when you throw a water bottle from that distance, you know that thing would have really hurt Kyrie if it would have hit it.
Well, it depends. I'm not quite sure if it was full or it was empty, but either way, you have to grasp when you're in enemy territory, and you have to know that if you decide to antagonize people who are on their home territory already, you know, you're in the Boston Garden Arena or TD Bank Arena, whatever they call it. By the end of the game, most of those people have at least 2 or 3 beers in them. So they have the courage juice in them. And then on top of that, they're at home, so they feel emboldened. And you decide to step on their logo. Why? People like to be divided up into gang sets, whether they want to admit it or not. There are very few truly independent thinkers on the planet Earth. People like to feel like they belong to a collective or to a group. When you say that you're a fan of a certain team, that's pretty much a hop, skip, and a jump away from calling yourself a gang member. It really is. That's why people argue over, you know, whose team they want to win in a particular game. Especially in soccer, you have people who get stabbed to death, get beaten with bats, get stomped out. It happens all the time. When football season rolls around, the Giants versus the Eagles versus the Redskins, these people, they have fights outside of their stadiums all the time, because of the passion that is associated with them belonging to a certain collective. So Kyrie has to grasp, or maybe he just doesn't care. When you step on the logo, it's almost like stepping on somebody's flag. You have to expect that they're going to get emotional about it. So I would not even necessarily say that this was a racial incident per se. If there was something associated with that, would it surprise me? No. But it's difficult to deduce that because Kyrie Irving decided that he wanted to piss people off. Or maybe he stepped on the logo because he was hearing some racial taunts over the course of the game. But of course, that's speculative. That's hypothetical.
He came very, very, very close to hitting Kyrie in his face. And who knows, from that distance, you might have put his eye out. You remember Orlando Brown lost the sight in his eye with a beanbag from closer distance.
Yep.
See, Orlando Brown Sr.
He did.
Skip, I just, and it overshadowed because the big three from the Nets, Skip, if they play like this, you might as well just go and hand them the title. There's nothing you can.
Well, that's the reason why it was so important for Giannis to stick his foot out there underneath Kyrie, because he knew that even with just those 2 players, they were not going to beat the Nets. They had no chance of beating the Nets with just Kyrie and KD. I mean, shit, just KD damn near won the series.
104 points. James Harden's going to give you 18 assists.
Yep.
You know,
Look at that crazy looking white boy. Drunk out of his fucking mind. Looking up at the crowd. Hey, Ma, I'm on TV. Get the car. I'm going to lock up for about a weekend. Pay the rent for my apartment.
beating them. You're not. And that's what we should be talking about. But again, Boston. And they wonder why you keep bringing it up, Shannon. You're a race baiter. You keep.
Well, you are a race baiter, Shannon Sharp, and that's pretty much how you're trying to build your platform and your profile. That's how you're trying to amplify yourself, is through race talk and low-level race talk at that. But that's customary with Boule members. People in the Boule, when I say Boule, I mean, you know, members of either Sigma Pi Phi or, you know, one of the associated fraternal groups or sorority groups. They always try to act as if they're so knowledgeable about history and about race, and normally they're knowledgeable about neither one. I've always stated that for all of his bluster, I watched Shannon Sharpe's entire career in the NFL in the 90s, early 2000s. He never said one thing about race publicly, not one thing. All of a sudden he gets he gets on Undisputed, and he's motherfucking Marcus Garvey. He's like, get out of here, man.
Yep.
That's why we keep bringing it up. That's why we keep talking about it. And Danny Ainge, the general manager, said, well, in all my years, Skip, I sent him a copy of Cornbread Maxwell's book because he played with Cornbread. So Cornbread had a lot to say about it.
You seriously?
No, I didn't. But I'm just saying I should send him a copy.
Right, but that's not what you said. You said you did. So once again, most of the stuff that you do for TV, Shannon Sharpe, and everybody knows that. But again, what is Danny Ainge supposed to say? Is he supposed to get on TV and say, hey, you know, I've been in Boston for almost 40 years, and yeah, they're racist as shit here? They're racist as fuck? He already knows he's walking on hot coals. If he says something like that, the letters from the Boston fans are going to inundate upper management with the Celtics, trying to get them to fire Danny Ainge. Danny Ainge ended up stepping down anyway, so who knows? He may have been coerced into stepping down. But he wasn't going to say that shit. And if Cornbread Maxwell said that he dealt with a lot of racial shit, would not surprise me at all. We all know that Bill Russell came home to find that somebody had took a shit in the middle of his bed.
Why? KD and them, they summed it up eloquently. Is that because you buy a ticket, it's not about you. You come to be entertained. The entertainment is to watch guys with a high skill level.
Let me say this very quickly, and this is something that I've experienced on my little low level as someone who has been able to develop viewership per se. A lot of times people start to think that they have like this investment in you because they're so infatuated with how well you do what you do. Whether it's a basketball player, whether it's an analyst, whether it's a speaker, whether it's an artist, whether it's a writer, when people are heavily invested in what you do, they start to overstep their bounds sometime because of how entranced they are with the gifts that you have. So every once in a while, you do have to let them know, back up just a little bit, fall back, calm down. But it's also up to the creator or to the artist or to the performer to also understand that that's part of the, you know, it's a two-way light that is shined, right? Or that is shown. The gift that you have, yes, it emanates outward, but it also causes people to want to come towards you. It's like the concept of awe. The definition of awe is like mutual attraction and repulsion at the same time. So it's a very similar dynamic. You know, when you're gifted, people want to watch you from afar, but they also want to approach you. They want to feel like they can be near you or touch you in some way.
That's what the entertainment is. It's not for you to come throw stuff at us. Yeah. That's not what you pay to do. You get upset because your team lost. You get upset because I played extremely well and I didn't play well when I was here. So that gives you the right to.
Well, Kyrie did play well when he was there. The problem is that the media, because they were still so disdainful towards Kyrie for leaving LeBron James, their boo thing, you guys started to sow different seeds into the heads of the young Celtic players after Kyrie was hurt in 2018 for those playoffs. You guys started to sow certain seeds into the heads of Jason Tatum and a lot of those other young players, Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, to make them think that they didn't need Kyrie. These players, they read those articles. So when Kyrie came back into camp for 2018, he basically had to let those young boys know that it was his team again. The Boston Celtics got off to a great start at the start of the 2017-2018 season with Kyrie at the helm. They started out something like 24-4 or something like that. He had injuries over the course of that season, and he did go down for those 2018 playoffs. But the reason why their locker room became so toxic before the 2018-2019 season is because the media wanted to make sure that they left enough dynamite in the Boston locker room team chemistry area that there would be no way that the young players would actually respect Kyrie how they would need to in order for the team to be successful. So, I mean, when we evaluate Kyrie's time period or tenure with the Boston Celtics, we have to appraise it appropriately. Because over the course of the 2020-2021 season, the Celtics did not play well, but nobody mentions that. They just say, well, maybe they didn't play that well because they had such a deep run in the playoffs in the bubble. Well, that's speculative. Because at the end of the day, they dropped off so much, especially when it came to camaraderie.
Your slurs or to throw things at me. Really? And, KD summed it up. After all this time of, being away, and this is what you resort to throwing things because you're upset. And Skip, like I said, I don't know what a team can do because you're in a pandemic. You just got fans back maybe, 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago? So you lost out millions and millions of dollars. You're not going to just since y'all don't know how to act. I think it was a soccer team that they were shouting, they're throwing things, and they're like, okay, you know what? We ain't going to have fans for the next match.
Yeah.
But Skip, you can't do that in the NBA. They just got back.
They just got back.
Yeah, they lost a whole year of revenue from fan attendance. Fans, just behave. Why can't you just behave? That's all. We're not asking you to do anything. Go.
Let me say this very quickly. Especially when you're dealing with a person who's immature and leading with their jealousy, since we were just talking about fans a while ago. Dealing with a fan is very similar to dealing with almost like a pet. Depending on how you decide to treat the pet can many times dictate how the pet will treat you back or reciprocate that level of treatment, that level of energy. I mean, fans always want validation. That's why I speak about not being a fan. It is very unmanly to be a fan. Because once you go into the fan zone, now you have to be babied. Many times you have to be ignored. Because when you decide that you're going to enable that concept of a fanboy, it only encourages more and more feminine behavior, and things can spill out of control to the point where you might have to hurt or even kill someone. I mean, who knows? There's a reason why they make movies like that. There was a film that came out almost 30 years ago called The Fan, starring Wesley Snipes and Robert De Niro. Right? And we all know about those stalker films that have come out, like, what's the one with Glenn Close and Michael Douglas, Fatal Attraction? Clint Eastwood had a great film along that same line that came out in the early 70s called Play Misty for Me, about a woman who was infatuated with him. He was a disc jockey. You understand? So, I mean, when Shannon Sharp asked the hypothetical question of why fans don't know how to act, well, the very definition of a fan would denote that they inherently don't know how to act because they're a fanatic. They're fanatical. Fanatical people don't know how to act. They don't have comportment. So it's up to the athlete to make sure that they don't do anything to antagonize the fans unless they're ready for what is going to come back in return.
Taboo, scream your lungs out. But y'all going too far for him because now you make it about you, and it's not about you. Nobody will turn on their TV. Let me see what they're gonna throw today, what they're gonna do today. That's not what people turn their TV on to watch.
So dumping a bucket of popcorn on a player's head is one thing. At least I don't think that could injure you.
Right.
Spitting on a player is like the ultimate act of disrespect, but it can't hurt you physically, right?
Mm-hmm.
It depends. If somebody spits on you and it gets in your eye or in your mouth or in your nose or something like that, if they have some type of fluid transmitted disease, even HIV, you can catch HIV that way. So that's about the most disrespectful thing that somebody can do. And normally it will result either in you getting knocked out or possibly killed.
It was a big bottle of water and it looked full to me.
Yeah.
And it's heaved from pretty high
Yeah,
up.
so it came from a long way.
Now we're talking about attempted assault, correct?
Yeah.
And I immediately tweeted that fan should be arrested and he was handcuffed.
Yeah.
Well, number one, any fan who decides that they're going to harass a player with quote-unquote abusive language that is highly racialized in nature, they should be banned for life off rip. Anybody who throws an object should be banned for life off rip, and they should be privy to charges from law enforcement. Absolutely.
Charges should be pressed, and he should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law.
They probably got a GoFundMe account up right now to post him to get him right up out of there. Watch. Bet you they got it.
It could be.
Hey, Mom, top of the world. That's really all a fanboy wants. They just want to be noticed. Once again, they're like women, man. They're like bitches. You know, when I first came on YouTube, and I made a video about this concept, you know, or at least I alluded to it in a video that I did a very long time ago about Draymond Green, when he got into an altercation with a Michigan State athlete while he was visiting the campus. I think that he was at some restaurant, and the Michigan State athlete was eating with his significant other, very attractive young lady, but this dude is so infatuated with trying to antagonize Draymond Green. They ended up in an altercation, and I think that Draymond had to pay him a settlement. And I noticed when I first came on YouTube, like, you know, there will be a certain type of person who might be in the comment section making, you know, an inflammatory comment, and if I responded, then they would say something like, "Oh, okay, now that I have your attention, let me ask you a question." See, that's when I realized, like, wow, a lot of these people are really bugged out of their fucking minds. And then you got, you know, what I call the help meet, the help meet people. They act like they want to be your fucking wife. Hey, I built this for you. I made this for you. I didn't ask you to do none of that. Like, I mean, it really just amazes me. It's like, what's really wrong with a lot of these people? And, you know, my best guesstimation is, well, a couple things. Number one, a lot of men are not doing their due diligence in raising their sons properly. There's a big difference between giving someone their due credit for their talents and their hard work, whatever their gifts might be, as opposed to becoming overly infatuated with that person as a human being and as an individual that you don't even know, like a woman would. You understand? That's where the quasi or the pseudo homosexual component comes in. But then on top of that, I don't think that a lot of these people really have developed their real life. Many times I notice that people, they get so caught up in the internet world that they're not willing to develop their real life. They seek out all of this sustenance from the web, from the portal that they enter into, from the rabbit hole that they go down into, where they start to actually think that they know people who they don't know. And that's very dangerous, because once you think that you know someone that you don't know, now you start to think that people owe you who don't owe you and who don't know you. And that's where a lot of the delusion can go, you know, to a very, very extreme place that once again can result in very bad things happening. So it's very important that brothers develop real life and that they know how to unplug from the internet world.
Well, could be. I'm just saying that went over the edge of just banishment from the arena.
Yes.
That went to, you should go to jail for attempted assault.
Mm-hmm.
If you threw something at somebody out on the street, you know what would happen.
Yeah, you go to jail.
Yeah, you're going to go.
Going to jail, might get your ass whooped or get killed.
The press charges.
And now we have video.
Right.
It's you threw it, and it came very close to hitting your intended target.
Right.
Attempted assault.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now we've gone one level deeper, where you can send a message by sending somebody to jail. I don't know if the charge was, I have no idea. I'm not. I'm out of my league on that one. But I would hope they would press charges and try to send that young man to jail.
Well, that's going to be on Kyrie.
Okay? Well, then he should press. And he seems like he would have the fortitude and the constitution and the character to press charges.
Yeah, I think so, but I'm not quite sure if Kyrie has done that. But I could definitely see Kyrie at the Boston police station. Yeah, that was him. That was him. That was the oppressor that did that to me. The colonizer. Yeah, him.
So now back to what you mentioned. At the end of the game, it was unnecessary to me for Kyrie to go out and stomp on the Leprechaun logo, right?
You want the TL? You remember how TL celebrated?
If we could, did we show it? And he just comes out, and I don't know.
Yeah, that was off. Because not only did the brother step on the logo, like he wiped his shoe on it, like this ain't shit. And you know, not to go there, but when you look at the Leprechaun, the figure, he's doing the as above, so below pose. Do you see that? He has the staff, and the basketball represents, you know, some other object, but he's balancing it on his forefinger as he points upward, as above, so below.
So again, I'm not excusing in any way, shape, or form the throwing of the water bottle, but it could have.
And of course, he's also winking, so he's just showing the right eye. So the Celtic logo, or the Celtic logo, obviously is a stylized version of Jupiter, or Horus, aka Heru.
The emotion.
Of course, who we know today as the Baphomet.
How about this, Skip? If Tristan Thompson or somebody runs up on Kyrie and shoves him, okay, I get it. But the fans didn't come out the stands to get T.O. George Teague handled that. Emmitt Smith handled that.
I know, that's true.
So
good point.
If one of the players, Kyrie, bro, come on now. Now, we ain't going to let you disrespect the logo. I get that.
Okay, and what got me about it was, now you're disrespecting the Celtics organization and tradition. And allow me to repeat.
Well, I think that Kyrie might have some suspicions that the reason why the Boston media got on him so hard is because of stories that were leaked to them by the Celtics organization. Like, I know for a fact that many times I would see Paul Pierce or Kendrick Perkins on TV, and it was very obvious that they were given certain narratives pertaining to things that were transpiring in the Celtics locker room. So where were they getting that from? They were either getting it from the players or they were getting it from the media. People like Jackie McMullen and other people who are tied into those type of things. So that might be another reason why Kyrie was very frustrated with this time period in Boston.
The Celtics were the first NBA team to draft a black player in 1950.
Yep.
Right, but Skip, now you're starting to sound like that. You should be so thankful that we had you here in Boston type of white guy. Be careful where you're treading, Skip Bayless. The real you starting to come out. Be careful.
To have a black head coach, the great Bill Russell, who was a player coach in 68 and 69.
Right.
Yes, the same Bill Russell who said that he came home one day and found that a white man had taken a dump in the middle of his bed. And by the way, the same Bill Russell who said that he would never come back to Boston. Ever. For any type of situation, ritual, anniversary, or anything like that. And that's why he never has. That's how much of a lack of respect that he has for that city, despite the fact that he won 11 championships there. So if Bill could still be that angry over what occurred during his tenure in Boston, Kyrie, I mean, if all he does is step on a damn logo, it's not that bad.
First NBA team to have a black starting five.
Correct.
Okay, well, give it some give it some respect.
Right.
Because nobody has ever had a problem with the organization that I'm aware of. Right.
And that's the thing.
Well, then you should probably do just a little bit more research, Skip Bayless, before you make those type of statements.
Skip, it's like, okay, what problem do you have with the organization, Kyrie? You might have a problem with the city of Boston, the people, people in Boston.
I got
no problem with that.
No, neither.
But I think they believed in you. You were happy to go there. So I don't really know what the organization, how did they run afoul with Kyrie?
And remember, in March of 2018,
Shannon, we all know, especially when an organization knows that a player is going to leave, they start leaking out stories that they feel like are going to make the player look bad, so that when they lose them in free agency, the fans are not too upset with the organization. So if I know that and you know that, Kyrie knows that.
Right.
He said, if y'all have me, I want to resign. And then it began to fall apart. And then he fell apart on the floor.
Right.
And he was, can I go disaster? He was disastrous.
Yeah, he wasn't very good, Skip. It didn't work.
Nonsense. He was not disastrous. His first year there, he was good. He just got hurt. The second year there, the chemistry was just horrific. And they still made the playoffs. They won their first round matchup. They lost in the second round. So, I mean, it is what it is.
For whatever reason,
fell apart with all the young players that they don't know how to win a championship. It was the
numerology with the Nets is just so interesting. Of course, you have Kevin Durant wearing the number 7, which represents the quote-unquote father god and the mother goddess, Saturn and the Shekinah. You have Kyrie Irving with the number 11, representing the twin pillars and the portal in between, the bringing together of opposites. And, of course, Mr. James Harden with the number 13, which represents the witch's coven on the left-hand side and the great serpent.
The Kyrie's stay in Boston the first time. So now, what would possess you then to stomp on the leprechaun logo? I don't know.
Right.
Not in any way, shape, or form excusing the water bottle. And I don't know if it precipitated it.
Right.
But to your point, what I hated about the big picture of this was, have the Nets played any better than they played yesterday?
No.
Because they were under some fire. They had lost on, was it Friday night?
Friday night.
Track of my nights. And it could have been 2-2. And look at these numbers. Durant goes 14 of 20, 42 points. How about Joe Harris chips in with 4 of 5 threes? Is there a deadlier three-point shooter right now than Joe Harris?
Obviously, this all took place before No-Go Joe couldn't make a damn three-point shot for the entire Milwaukee series.
Kyrie himself has 39 and 11 rebounds. Trae Young yesterday had 1 rebound. He barely rebounds. Kyrie got 11 rebounds. That's Westbrookian, right?
Yes.
That's true, but also keep in mind that Kyrie does not play the same position as Trae Young, and the same demands are not made of Trae Young that are made of Kyrie Irving. So it's difficult to compare those two players because Kyrie plays the off guard, which means that he can move more. He has more freedom of movement to even help with the rebounding than Trae Young has. And Kyrie's also a bigger and stronger and more explosive athlete than Trae Young.
Of course, James had 18 assists, which was his career playoff high. Well,
I think that James is going to enjoy his time period with the Nets as a facilitator because I think that that's where he's at his best. I don't think that James wants to be stuck having to score 35, 40 points, especially as he enters his 30s. He wants to be on a team with 2 other great scorers where he can just score if he needs to.
is that not a tour de force?
Yeah, look, if you let KD goes 14 of 20, 3 of 3 from three-point line, you foul him, he goes 11 of 11. Kyrie is 11 of 24, 6 of 12 from the 3, 11 of 11 from the free throw line. James Harden is 8 of 12,
Yep.
2 of 5, 5 of 6. Skipper, you not beating them. You let them score 100, shoot this kind of level of efficiency, and score 104 points between the 3 of them, you're not beating Brooklyn. So, you better come on.
You can honestly make the case that they have 3 of the top 4 most naturally talented offensive players in the NBA, not counting Steph Curry. I'm sure that many people want to give honorable mention to Damian Lillard and Bradley Beal and maybe even Jason Tatum, but the Nets, in my view, they have 3 of the top 4 most naturally gifted and talented offensive players in the league.
You better play better defense. Jason Tatum, I don't know what else you can do. You doing all you can. You gave me 50 on Friday. You gave me 40 last night. I don't know what else you can do, bro. You need somebody else to come in with no.
Jason Tatum, by the way, is a dark horse for a scoring title next year. He's somebody to watch. It's just that chemistry between him and Jaylen Brown, it's a little iffy because I don't think that either one has figured out who's going to be the alpha on offense and who's going to be the secondary guy.
They're going to get the other points to match the Nets.
So then we lost sight of all that after the game when Kyrie, who's a very deep thinker and knows his history, started to talk about you're seeing a lot of the old ways coming up. And he's talking about history in terms of entertainment performers in and out of sports for a long period of time, underlying racism. Well, he's going back to the days Wild Wild West and then the early Broadway days
when
you throw rotten fruit.
Yeah.
If you didn't like what you were seeing, you would throw rotten fruit at the performers on the stage. Now, that could be racist or not racist. That could just be white on white.
But, Skip, you remember when they first integrated sports, a lot of blacks went through this because the fans weren't happy. They wanted it to stay segregated. White, you play out, you play this sport.
They did.
Black, you could.
All that is true. But if we're going to properly contextualize what happened here, did the fan throw the water bottle at Kyrie over race, or was he frustrated by the fact that Kyrie is now on the Nets? We just can't make everything about race because we don't know what it actually was. You have people who are very angry and bitter that they see their ex with somebody else and they decide to do something stupid. It could easily be that. Unless someone can confirm that this dude called Kyrie the N-word or some other racial slur before throwing the bottle, you just can't put that on him.
Play a sport, but you play with other blacks, just like they wanted the schools. They didn't want to
see the Negro leagues, right?
Yeah. You got your own league.
Yeah.
Hence the HBCUs.
Hence.
You got your thing.
Hence.
You playing football, right?
Right, well, that's the thing. You Wokerty Negroes have to decide what is it that you want. Do you want to pump the HBCUs? Or do you want to pump integration? Because if you're for integration, shouldn't you be against HBCUs and trying to force white institutions to accept more black students? I mean, just a question. Because most of you liberal niggas, y'all don't know what the hell y'all think. Pretty much, y'all just think whatever the liberal whites tell you to think.
Want you to play with us.
Yep.
And so once they started integrating, we know what the slurs and the things that Jackie Robinson went through. And some of the football players, they weren't allowed to stay in the same hotel as their white counterpart.
Yep.
So it's been different. And so some of that has still, even though it was the 50s and the 60s, has found its way to 2021.
Yes.
And here we are still.
Now, how the hell did you come to that conclusion, Shannon Sharp? You just spoke about how players were not allowed to stay in the same hotels as their white counterparts. Are you telling me that Joe Harris is staying at, the Ritz-Carlton, and Kyrie Irving and James Harden and Kevin Durant are staying at the Motel 6? Because if you're not saying that, then you should not have brought up that analogy, because it's comparing apples to oranges. But once again, these guys, they try so fucking hard. And again, the amazing thing is that Shannon Sharp was the person who was taking Kyrie Irving to task for calling down a potential racial situation before the Nets even went to Boston for games 3 and 4. But now he wants to jump on the race bandwagon, and we're not even sure that that's the reason why Kyrie had the bottle thrown at him. See, because of Kyrie's conduct, it's difficult to ascertain exactly what happened and why. I mean, we know that the fan threw the bottle at him, and that's the extent of what happened, but the exact why, we don't know. And you can't just spend 10 to 15 minutes speculating about why the person did what they did and try to throw the racial or the racist moniker on that person. To me, he looks like a drunk idiot who probably was just a very possessive fanboy, aka fag boy, and doesn't know how to act, as most of their type don't know how to act unless and until they get their ass whooped or worse.
But I don't know how the NBA or teams can get it out there, because you hope people come with the best intentions to cheer, applaud their team, but anger and what do I do, Skip? If I get really mad, what's the thing that I can say or do to make you feel how I feel? Call you something, throw something on you?
Yep.
Because that's why I want you to hurt like I'm hurting. You beat.
Right, but is that the reason why Kyrie stepped on that logo? Because he wanted the Boston fans to hurt like how he hurt? Now, Kyrie might come back and say the reason why I stepped on the logo is because for those 2 games, I heard fans calling me the N-word all throughout those 2 games. And automatically, the narrative will change. But then one also has to wonder, why bring it up before you even go to play those games? Everybody is going to have to deal with that. If you have a real issue about what's going on there, wait for it to happen first, and then bring it up in the post-game press conference, so that at least you have some type of empirical evidence, or point out the fans who are saying it during the game so that it's on camera, let the security take care of it, and then bring it up after the game. That's how you make real change. You don't make real change by talking about shit that hasn't happened before it happens. I mean, that's like you bringing up something about your so-called ex-girlfriend. I'm coming to pick up my son. Don't come to the door and try to start an argument with me. Ain't nothing even happened yet. Maybe that's what you want to have happen, so that you can justify the notions that you have rolling around in your skull.
Beat him down.
Yeah.
And by the way, Steve Nash left his starters in to the bitter, almost his seconds left.
Right, but Steve Nash is a fucking idiot. And who knows, that might have been, those last couple of minutes in that game with James Harden out there might have been the time where he initially twinged his damn hamstring. But Steve Nash don't know what the fuck he's doing. He's scared to death. He just wants all 3 starters out there, or the 3 stars of the starters out there, to just play 45 minutes, all you guys. He don't know what the hell he's doing.
Already up like 20-something points. I was like, well, KD, Kyrie, them not playing anymore. And then I come back and look, I'm like, hold on. They played 40 minutes.
They were rubbing it in. And I don't know if Steve wanted to take him out, and Kyrie said, no, we're going to stay.
Yeah, they sent the message on that one.
They did.
Because ain't no way, Skip, in a game of this magnitude, the guy's supposed to play 40 minutes.
No.
They was up like 25 points at one point. But they look good. But unfortunately, Skip,
it got
we
hard.
We had to start talking about something that really should not have no part of the ball game.
Yeah, it's frustrating. It's disrespectful. And I thought Katie's words were really important. How he said, look, I understand these fans have been cooped up. They're angry. They're on edge. But you got to have respect for the game, respect for these human beings, and respect for yourself. And that's what it comes down to. And I hope we are done with these discussions on Undisputed, because as fans, we got to be better.
Stop lying. You do not hope that y'all are done with them racial discussions, because y'all need that shit to take up segments on your show. But anyway, once again, bros, we have to remember that we tend to attract the things that we think about and speak about the most. So peace.